Okay, hello there. So today I'm going to do something a bit different. Been getting a lot of different questions about, the prophecies about Trump and different things. So I'm going to do this brief video series regarding how I believe we got here with respect to so many people prophesying about that Trump would get a second term. Not only was it prophesied that he would get a second term, it was prophesied that he would get a second term now. Okay, and so if you follow me, you already know where I stand on that. I do not believe that God said that. I do not believe that those prophecies were accurate, nor do I believe that they were conditional, especially since many, we'll get to it later in another video, many of those prophets were asked very directly, will Donald Trump get a second term now? And they said yes, without condition. But I believe in order to answer how we got there, we need to come out of the church and we need to look at things that were happening in the world and how it affected the church, how it affected society, and how it affected America. So you can see on the screen, I have a document up on the screen. Okay, this is report number 2 from the Senate Intelligence Committee. Okay, the Senate Intelligence Committee is the committee responsible for the oversight of intelligence agencies in the United States. In other words, the CIA, the NSA, and I believe it's like 12 or 13 other intelligence agencies in the United States. Don't quote me, but it's several of them. They're responsible for overseeing the activities and the operations of these groups. So when something goes wrong, the heads of these agencies report to this committee. Now, this committee did an investigation on Russian interference in the 2016 election. Okay, and this is not fake news. This is literally the report that the Republican-led Senate Intelligence Committee produced, led by loyal Trump supporters, including people like Marco Rubio, even Mitch McConnell, Tom Cotton. Various Republicans led this bipartisan committee, and so this report has a lot to do with what has happened with the polarization in the church in America, and I also believe with respect to the prophetic movement, it shaped what the Russians did in their operation, which I'll explain from this report, had profound effects on our teaching, our preaching, our theology, and even how we interact with one another. And I will give you a direct example on how this report affected the church. Not this report, but how the activities of Russian operatives directly affected the church and is still affecting us today. So let's look at the introduction. I'll let it speak for itself, and you can see, what the purpose of all this is. So this is the introduction, direct from the report. In 2016, Russian operatives associated with the St. Petersburg-based Internet Research Agency IRA used social media to conduct an information warfare campaign designed to spread disinformation and societal division in the United States. That's disinformation and societal division in the United States. This is what Russian operatives did. This is what the Kremlin orchestrated. How did they do that? What they did was they masqueraded as Americans. These operatives used targeted advertisements, intentionally falsified news articles, self-generated content, and social media platform tools to interact with and attempt to deceive, watch this, tens of millions of social media users in the United States. This campaign sought to do what? It sought to polarize Americans on the basis of societal, ideological, and racial differences. provoked real-world events, and was a part of a foreign government's covert support of Russia's favored candidate in the U.S. presidential election. So what we have here is Russian spies using social media to create fake accounts, fake news articles, and all types of fake content, right? A lot of those conspiracy theories that everyone loves and everyone loves to prophesy from, a lot of that stuff that we love to share was birthed from a Russian information warfare campaign that affected tens of millions of Americans, including those in the church. Now, this report has 5 volumes in total. It's, I think, about 1,200 pages. This is volume 2. It has a lot of interesting examples of things that happen, information about different pages that many people followed, that you may have followed. This has affected tens of millions of people. And again, this is not a partisan report. It was led, the committee's led by Republicans who supported Donald Trump, even to the bitter end. And furthermore, this report goes on to explain that the Russian operatives did not target one particular ideological spectrum, but they targeted anyone, any viewpoint, any belief system in the United States that could be targeted. So everything from the Proud Boys to Black Lives Matter, there was content and disinformation that was pumped out to these differing views, groups, and ideologies. Now let's get directly to an example that this report gives about what happened with the church, okay? Attempts to influence Christians on social media. We have to understand that just because something is on the internet and just because something says it's from God or sounds godly, that doesn't mean that it's from God, right? We have been deceived into thinking that a form of godliness is enough, right? It's good enough to use God language, to use God speech, God talk, God terms, but there is something that must be more powerful than God language, right? We have to go beyond, somebody said Jesus, somebody said something about God, because we have been and we can all easily be deceived. So I want to show you, I just had it, I want to show you an example of an attempt to influence the views of Christians, okay? So let me explain something about propaganda. The way propaganda works is, and they talk about this as well in the report, in order for propaganda to be effective, you have to explain things in a way, or rather you have to give true information before you give false information. You have to gain the trust and the support of people that are watching and listening and reading what you put out. So here is an example of a Christian page. So there was a Christian page that was out there, and it had over 216,000 followers on Facebook. 216,000 followers, and it was called the Army of Jesus. The Army of Jesus, right? We're on the battlefields fighting for the Lord, unless you're Russian operatives and you're fighting to produce your societal division agenda, right? And so what they would do is they would begin to release information or say things that would speak to the audience that they're talking to. Again, they did this to all types of groups, not just Christians, but it has affected us, right? So for instance, these are some posts. There has never been a day where people did not need to walk with Jesus. Powerful, deep, profound, right? Here's another post. I've got Jesus in my soul. It's the only way I know. Watching every move I make, guiding every step I take. So beautiful. Rise and shine and realize his blessing. Many of us would have clicked like, we would have clicked share, we would have liked the page, liked the post, put a little heart. Jesus will always be by your side. Just reach out to him and you will see. Okay, Russian operatives, all right, speaking Jesus talk, speaking Christianese, speaking the language of the people that they want to influence, building and gaining trust so that they can do, as the report says, release their payload. What was their payload, right? A payload is what you put on a rocket to, do the dirty work, right? To destroy, blow up, and so their objective was to get pieces of misinformation out. So they didn't only want Christians to disapprove of Hillary. They wanted her to believe that she was literally evil, and that they wanted Christians to believe that they were in this good versus evil war. Like they wanted Christians to be polarized into believing that this is literally a good versus evil, that their voting is good versus evil. And so here's the payload. Hillary approves of the removal of God from the Pledge of Allegiance, right? So that was their objective with respect to this page, to give disinformation that wouldn't just be disinformation, but would be polarizing, right? And so then you got another regular post, right? Never hold on to anything tighter than you hold on to God. Profound, deep. Hit the share button, hit like, hit heart, comment. This had over 216,000 followers. And you may be saying, oh, what's the big deal? They said, Hillary approves removal of God from the Pledge of Allegiance. What happens is when you have an influence with a group of people and these people are following you, the words that you say has weight, regardless of the truth or the veracity of the claims that you're making. When you make polarizing disinformation claims, it has weight with the hearers, right? And so the echo chamber of social media is not merely built by people only seeing their view and hearing their view. What the actual academic literature says is the echo chamber is built by the communities, that people are in. The more power an influencer has, right, the more weight they have over some psychological elements of the psyche. But I won't go too into that. You can read about that on your own. So they did this on various topics, various things, but they wanted to create polarization, not just disinformation, but polarization. And so a lot of your fake news articles, real fake news, not what President Trump was talking about, but actual fake news that did not come from rigorous journalism and analysis and study, but literal news. So if you have a post like this, right, what is Russia going to do next? They're going to make some type of article with Hillary next to the flag or something that's going to evoke emotions, and it's going to say Hillary approves the removal of God from the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's going to take some small clip or some small thing and edit it and put it out of context to evoke emotions. And if you don't know how to properly research and judge information on the internet, and you begin to get all of those posts, right, because those algorithms determine what you see next. So if you like one conspiracy theory, they're going to send you another conspiracy theory. If you like that conspiracy theory, they're going to keep sending you conspiracy theories. They're going to keep sending you conspiratorial information, right? And as you read more and more and more and more of these conspiracy theories, of these falsified articles, right, as you begin to open your human psyche up to that, what happens, as I described in my book, Unmasking Prophetic Bias, and where I talked about COVID-19 prophecies, when you begin to open yourself up to conspiracy theories, what happens to you psychologically is governed by the illusory truth effect. And what that means is the more you hear something, regardless of what you knew prior as fact, or what you understand, the more you entertain and the more you hear it, right, the more likely you are to believe it, regardless of its basis in the truth or the lack thereof, right? In other words, the more you hear something, the more you're going to believe that it's true, even if it's false. That's how your brain works. You can look at in my book, I cited, if I remember correctly, I cited the original paper and explained from there, because I like to go primary source, give you exactly what is being said, right? And so the more conspiracy theories you listen to, the more you're going to believe them, the more you're going to be open to them, the more you're going to find them. And this is critical for the church, because a report just came out the other day. 50% of Protestant pastors report their congregations are sharing conspiracy theories amongst one another. The members are sharing conspiracy theories among one another. Why? Because we have been trained to, because these things create polarization, which was the objective of the Russian government. In my estimation, what we saw at the Capitol a few weeks ago was part of the culmination of what Russia wanted. The level of delusion, the level of polarization that we're seeing was hoped for, aimed for, and there was literally a operation to bring it forth. So here we have to understand that the Bible lets us know. It tells us, 1 Peter 5:8, right? Be sober, right? Be sober-minded, for you have an adversary, the devil, roaring about like a lion, seeking whom he may destroy. Sobriety is not only abstaining and staying away from drunkenness and drugs and things that affect your ability to have clarity, sobriety, and sight. It's also about staying away from things that are created to affect your psychology, that are created to affect your mind. So InfoWars and Epic Times and all these websites, QAnon, all these things that many Christians have begin to have fallen in love with and literally believe more than they believe the Bible. These things are dangerous because they affect the sobriety. I'm already way over time, but they've done this to other groups. You can read the report that yourself. They did different things to Black Lives Matter, different organizations, all types, every end of the spectrum. So it's not just Christians, but this is important for Christians because many leaders began to follow these conspiracy theories, these fake news articles from Russian operatives. They began to preach from them. They began to prophesy from them. And they interrupted their sensitivity as they allowed their psychology to be adjusted by ingesting all of this information, because the spirit of error was drenched upon all of these conspiracy theories, fake news, fake social media profiles. The spirit of error, the lying spirit, was all over this stuff. And people began to then call the truth a lie and a lie the truth. And so their discernment was switched, their discernment was swapped. That's why many seasoned people fell under this guise, because they engaged in what I call global gossip. Gossip is not just when you say things against your people that you know. It's when you look at somebody and you say, oh, Bill Gates, I know, because I read on a fake Russian news article that was written in English that you are a part of the New World Order and that you are trying to kill everybody by vaccine to control the population. And I know you, Fauci, I know what you're trying to do. You're reading global gossip. You're reading things that people create from their own soul to influence you. You're reading things that people find on forums and message boards. In the case of InfoWars, he literally said in a deposition that he gets his information from 4chan. He gets his information off of forums from random people, and he does no type of investigative journalism. There's no academic rigor. There's none of that stuff. And so we are following all of these things, and we're following these things into deception. So it's very important that we don't allow deception to creep in, because when you're prophetic, you have more of a responsibility to keep your sobriety, because insanity will try to speak like the voice of God, right? The prophetic is a great excuse for insanity. It's a great excuse for delusion. It's a great excuse to blame God for things that you're seeing and hearing when you're really not. It's always a great excuse. So if you're prophetic, you have to protect your sobriety, and you have a responsibility to, before you share something, fact check. Before you say something, be careful and verify the information. If you're going to walk in this office or you're going to prophesy, you're going to share things, make sure that what you're talking about is valid before you open your mouth up about it, and don't get carried away. All of us can be carried away. This affected tens of millions of people. At any point, you or I can literally lose our minds if it's not for the grace of God. We live in a society that is overwhelmed by culture, by technology and information, and it's sometimes very difficult to separate the truth from a lie. So I want to encourage you to be sober-minded and to not engage in this conspiratorial thinking. And some of that is from our poor end times teaching. I'll talk about that a bit later in another video. But a lot of prophecies came from people who were on social media, ingesting all this information on YouTube, learning the latest conspiracy theories. And furthermore, I personally do not know and have not seen anyone who prophesied that Trump would be president that did not share, that did not talk about any type of conspiracy theory, any type of conspiracy website. I haven't seen one who publicly, and I'm talking about people who have public platforms. I haven't seen one, and I've done 2 books on this, so I've looked at a lot of them. Oh yeah, I guess I should again let you know. So you can get a copy of my latest book, Politicization of the American Prophetic Movement, and I talk about the history of the American prophetic movement with respect to its relationship with American evangelicalism, and how that's had an effect on how we prophesy and some of the error in prophecy. If you have poor theology, you will have, and poor doctrine, you will misfire. And that's why many prophets can prophesy accurately about to give accurate personal prophecies, but poor prophecies about nations, governments, things like that, because their understanding of the prophetic is biased with respect to America and things like that, but it's not biased with respect to individuals. And so that's why someone can be so accurate in one area and completely off in another. And this was my first book in the series, Unmasking Prophetic Virus, where I talked about issues with a lot of COVID-19 prophecies. Many of the same prophets who said Trump would get a second term also said that COVID-19 would be gone by April, by Pentecost, things like that. And it didn't happen. And everybody wants to condition everything on prayer, but I'll talk about some of the issues with that with respect to a lot of the prophecies that were released. So already been speaking too much. Hopefully you at least caught the part about Russia and the example, and you understand it, and you're caught that part. And I know it's probably not many people still watching this here, but it's important to know this. It's important to be aware of this, and we'll talk more about this moving forward. Love you all. Be blessed.